So we are now 24 hours before the deadline that Donald Trump has given to the BBC to apologize and pay damages, $1 trillion, or be sued for defamation in California. Now, the BBC haven't formally responded to the substantive letter that was sent to him by Trump's lawyers. But most commentators seem to be in a consensus that for Donald Trump to take legal action in California would be rather risky, and for various reasons, among which are the fact that the publication occurred in the UK, and that there is going to be a jury trial, and a jury in California may not be as friendly to Trump as Trump would like him to be. The fact that Donald Trump is a public figure could be proven difficult for him to win the case. In this case, Donald Trump may well decide to sue the BBC, but in the court in England, in the High Court in the Strand in London. And to do that, you will need to consider that the legal system in England is substantially different in terms of what you need to prove in defamation cases. In a way, the system here in England would be much more friendly to Donald Trump. The first important thing for Trump will be that in England there isn't a right for a trial by jury in defamation cases, and the cases are tried usually by a single judge who is picked out of a small group of judges who are the members of the media and communication section in the High Court. These are specialist judges that tend to trial most of the serious defamation cases in the UK. The other thing that is likely to work in Trump's favor is the fact that what needs to be proven is quite different in England than in America. So in practical terms, Trump will need to go through 4 stages in order to prove his case of defamation. And we will go through those stages briefly now. So the first stage in a defamation case in England is to determine the meaning of the words, because what is important under English law is not necessarily the specific words that had been spoken or displayed in a publication, but the context. So when you talk about, say, a news article, you wouldn't look at a single paragraph or a single word that by itself may be defamatory, but you will look at the entire paragraph and sometimes the entire article in order to understand the context of it. Same applies to video publication. So it could be that some parts of a video may be defamatory by themselves, but when you look at listen and watch the video as a whole, together, even with commentary, the meaning could be completely different. So meaning is very, very important. So one of the first decisions that the judge will need to make is what meaning to attribute to the defamation. Trump will argue that the meaning of the video is that he incited his supporters to violently storm the Capitol. And I think that this is a reasonable interpretation of what the manipulated video is actually saying. The second important decision for the judge will be whether the defamatory attribution is a matter of fact or of an opinion. Now, if it is a matter of opinion, then the case will end there and Trump will lose. But if Trump can show the defamation was a matter of fact, then the case will move to the next stage. And what do I mean by fact versus opinion? Imagine, for example, that Trump's speech is being broadcasted by the BBC, and there is a commentator who give the commentary that Trump is inciting his supporters to storm the Capitol building. And provided this commentary is reasonably held, then that could be considered as an opinion of the commentator based on the facts of what the commentator just heard. But what we have a video that had been manipulated, creating a brand new fact. So in such case, it will be very, very difficult for the BBC to argue that this is not a fact, but it is a matter of opinion. What the BBC did, they created a brand new fact. So I think that the judge here will agree that this is a fact and not an opinion, although the new fact the BBC created did cause viewers to form an opinion as to Donald Trump intentions. The third important decision for the judge will be whether the defamation by the BBC did cause Donald Trump serious reputational harm. So under English law, the claimant or the plaintiff doesn't need to prove any financial loss, but they do need to prove that they suffered serious reputational harm. Now, this is an interesting one because I suspect the BBC will argue that Donald Trump did not suffer any serious reputational harm simply because, in their opinion, at least, he didn't have any good reputation to be harmed. However, I don't believe that this argument is really plausible, because that by the fact that three separate presidential elections, he won a very substantial number of votes, which of course indicate that those people who voted for him did believe that he had a good reputation. Now, the reputational harm needs to be suffered here in the UK. So it is very likely that if you can show that Donald Trump did have good reputation to be harmed in the US, he did have good reputation to be harmed in the UK as well, and that reputation is likely to have been harmed by the manipulation of the video. The other argument that the BBC may put forward is that Donald Trump was in fact impeached in relation to the very same facts to do with the storming of the Capitol. However, this is again an argument that is likely to fail, simply because impeachment means accusation, effectively. It doesn't mean that you've been found guilty of anything. And the fact is that Donald Trump was found no guilty following the impeachment. Now, this could also be a risky argument for the BBC if Donald Trump will then be able to show that part of the reasons for his impeachment was the video that was published or doctored by the BBC. So, having dealt with all that, the next hurdle for Donald Trump will be to deal with any defenses that the BBC may be able to put forward. And essentially, there are three defenses. Under English law, the press is not obliged to tell the truth. They are only obliged to tell substantial truth. Essentially, the court will not entertain any sort of minor details that are false. The BBC may argue that the manipulation of the video was only a minor detail. They didn't really change the substance of what was said and done by Donald Trump on that day. I think that they are likely to fail again with this argument. First, because it is very difficult to argue truth when you clearly produced a lie. And second, it is very clear that the manipulation of the video was very substantial. That when you watch the entire video, it is very clear that Donald Trump did not intend to incite his supporters to storm the Capitol. So the defense of truth is likely to fail. The other defense that may be available for the BBC is what we call honest opinion. So, but again, honest opinion, as I said earlier, is applicable to commentary, is what a commentator may take from a situation, or what the viewers of the BBC, they may form a negative honest opinion about Donald Trump, because they would have formed a reasonable opinion on the basis of the manipulated video. But the BBC, on the other hand, they cannot say that, because they are the very people who manipulated the video. They created that fact. And finally, there is a defense of qualified privilege. Qualified privilege is a defense that usually is available for members of the press when they report fairly and accurately from legal or public proceedings. And I think, again, it will be very difficult for the BBC to argue this defense simply because there was an element of malice with the manipulation of the video. And you cannot act maliciously and at the same time raise the defense of qualified privilege. So it seems that Donald Trump is likely to do rather well in England. But the question is, what would the judge actually do? We know that jury could be quite unpredictable. Here in England, Donald Trump will be facing a single judge. Now, I have no reason to doubt the integrity of the judge that will sit in the case. In fact, my firm have appeared pretty much in front of most, if not all, the judges in the media and communication section, and my experience, at least, is that they all are very fair, reasonable, and honest. But so judges sometimes did take into consideration public interest, which means how would their particular judgment affect the public as a whole? If Donald Trump was to claim for, say, $1 billion, that effectively could bankrupt the BBC. And it may be the case that the judge will consider that cannot be in the public interest. So in such case, the judge may still rule in favor of Trump, but reduce the amount of damages quite substantially. At the same time, a decision in favor of the BBC could possibly be send a message to the public that a substantial press organization can tell a blatant lie and then simply get away with it. And also will possibly undermine public trust in the justice system. It seems that taking legal action in the UK would in fact be far less risky for Donald Trump, even though he may not be able to recover such a large amount of money. So I think it would all depend on two things. First, whether the BBC will be offering a satisfactory reparation to Donald Trump. And second, whether Donald Trump is in fact intending to bankrupt the BBC.